So the title is a little bit of a bait and switch because you can't motivate people. You can't motivate your team, but you can encourage them to motivate themselves. You are on the tail end of a series all about motivating your team, but based on an earlier blog called You Can't Motivate People. And in that blog, we learned to encourage motivation with the 3 C's. You learn to get clear, to get curious, and to get communicating. And in this series, we have dug deep into each of those 3 things. Today, in our final video, we are going to focus on communication. And if you know anything about leadership, you know that communication is the foundation of leadership. You know that your number one responsibility as a leader is to communicate. So today we are talking about inspiring motivation in your team with that very special thing, communication. And if you are newly joining us here, you will get so much more out of the logistics that we're going to talk about today, how to actually apply this motivational soil that you are creating for your team to grow in. When you fully understand how to motivate your team with clarity and curiosity. Those 2 videos are linked down below, so go and dig into those first. But today, like I said, it is all about logistics. It is all about how you make that clarity and curiosity come to life through your communication. Now, your team can hit just about any goal you set for them. And I can say that with confidence, even without meeting your team, because it is dependent on you. It is dependent on you setting up that foundation, setting up that soil to get their motivation on point. Now, in case you need a reminder or you did not take my advice and go back and watch those first 2 videos, let's recap what motivation actually means. Motivation is the reason or reasons someone has for acting or behaving in a particular way. Sometimes what needs to be done, that particular way that we want them to behave in, or that we want them to act on, or action we want them to take, seems really obvious to us. Other times, we know our team well enough and we know the situation enough to know that we're going to spend a little extra time on what needs to happen. And either way, whether we're going to spend a ton of time there or we're going to just hit it quickly, we need to be abundantly clear on exactly what that is and why it's needed, what the action is that we want them to take, what the decision point is that we need them to focus on, and why it's so important. Once we do that, once we are abundantly clear, hello, clarity, then we can focus on the reasons one has, each individual person, for wanting to actually accomplish that thing. Because people can be motivated individually to actually achieve a collective goal, to actually achieve the goal that you or the organization or your boss has set out for them. And because that motivation part is so very personal, we need to get curious about each employee, every single one of them, and what drives them. All of that clarity and curiosity hinges on one action. Yeah, you guessed it, it's communication. In working with one client, he actually started off really skeptical, as you may be too, and I won't be offended by that, right? He was thinking that he didn't have the time to add communication, and he wasn't actually getting clear or curious with his team because he didn't see the value on spending that extra time there. And I get it. It can feel like a lot of work. For him, it felt like a lot of work for a nice to have that wasn't actually going to move the needle on those really big goals that he had. He was a founder and he really needed some major action to happen within his organization. And he had a pretty skeletal team to get that done with. We're going to come back to him in a little bit, but in case you're feeling how he felt, I want to talk about how communication can actually help motivate the team to accomplish big goals, really big goals, in less time. So let's walk through one of the most common goals since the beginning of the information age for sure. And that is basically to do more with less. That's been a company initiative for almost every company that I've worked with, and it will continue to be in 2025. It will be no different. The only thing that changes over the years on do more with less is how you get there. So in 2025, that's likely going to include some AI, some machine learning, some digital transformation in order to do it. Goals that focus on innovation to make better use of AI and digital tools are important to company advancement, right? This is an ever changing technological world at this point. And it's a totally unknown frontier for a lot of businesses. That is exciting because we get to move into this new frontier and we get to expand and innovate in totally different ways. But it can also be terrifying, particularly for your employees. And that is precisely why communicating to motivate your team is so critical to your success. Imagine you got a goal like this one and think about how you would share it with the team. So imagine the goal you got from senior leadership is implement RPA to streamline workflows, reduce manual errors, and free up time for higher value activities for employees. That's pretty good, right? It sounds really positive. Implement RPA. We're going to streamline workflows. We're going to reduce errors. We know that those come from manually inputting things into spreadsheets all the time, right? We call it fat fingers. And free up time for employees, have them work on higher value work. That sounds fantastic. But how would you share that with your team? How would you implement that goal that you got from senior leadership? Now, I can't say what you would do specifically, but I can tell you what most managers would do. Most managers would go into a team meeting and they would just regurgitate the goal that they got from their boss. They maybe would send that email out to everybody on the team. They maybe would read the email to them. And then they would reach out to their top performer and say, you know what, I think this would be a really good opportunity for you. I think that if you search out vendors that can promise this capability, and then you're able to actually deliver what these senior leaders are asking for here, I think that you could hit the mark. And after all, it's going to be good for your career, right? So that volunteer that they asked for when they specifically reached out to that top performer ended up being a voluntold situation. And that manager is going to walk away and pat themselves on the back. They involved the team. They were transparent, right? They told them exactly what senior leadership wanted. And then they delegated an important opportunity to someone with really high potential. Then they're going to come back in about a month. They're going to go back to that volunteer that they had. And they're going to ask them why the project isn't done yet. How long can it possibly take to Google vendors and pick one? And then if that top performer does have vendors that they can share and what they're able to do, the manager is probably going to pepper them with questions about tracking and KPIs and details that were never accounted for in the first place, which is going to make the manager feel really panicked because things that they now know are important a month in aren't accounted for. And this volunteer, this top performer who's been, taken away from the other tasks that they're responsible for is going to feel frustrated. And they're going to have to start this project all over again with the new information that they got from this manager. But if a leader with exceptional communication got the same goal from senior leadership, they would be able to create that soil for motivation in their team rather than creating frustration and anxiety. So, first, if a leader got that goal, if a leader was asked by their senior leadership to work on that focus, that directional aspiration, because let's be honest, it wasn't smart, it wasn't a real specific goal, they would probably start by doing some quick review on what other organizations are seeing by way of lift and timelines when they implement RPA, which is also known as bots, which you would find out if you did some quick preliminary research as a leader. They would look to see what their competitors, what their peers, what other people in the industry are actually seeing and doing with this new capability. And in their next team huddle, they would bring this information to the team as well, but not by regurgitating what they heard, like the manager did. They would let the team know the directional focus and the research that they're doing themselves and the questions that they're asking. They might even open the floor to get more questions from the team, with the transparency being around the fact that they don't have all the answers yet and they're working on it, rather than the transparency being around, this is verbatim what I heard from my boss. They would share with the team that work on this project will likely open doors to more fast-paced technology-focused solutions, more projects that are bigger but similar to this one. And then they'd ask the team members to reach out if they have any interest in being a part of that. Then, after that meeting, after their initial Google searches and review of what peers are doing, they would go back to senior leadership. They would have an idea of what a reasonable amount of lift would be, what expectations senior leadership could have of making these sort of changes, and a timeline based on that research that they did. They would focus with senior leadership on getting agreement for the new details on the goal. Then they'd go back to their team members, the ones who actually showed interest in working on a project like this, and they would give them this new specific goal that they worked with their leadership on. The new goal might be something like decrease operational costs by 20% within 24 months by automating repetitive tasks. And they might have some ideas on what those are, like data entry, processing, reconciliation reports, using bots. They would go back to terminology that people actually understand rather than RPA. Those interested team members, they would get to work on creating a plan. They would work on the how, not the leader giving them an idea of what the how is to do the project. The clarity from this leader is showing what needs to be done, not how to get there. Now, the leader then gets to start sharing the actual goal and why it is so important with the whole team. They get to provide clarity to the smaller team, the interested team I'm working on the project, with clarity on the what, and they get to provide the whole team on clarity on the why. They can field all of the questions in those meetings. And by the time that first month comes to an end, by the time that first manager we talked about is getting frustrated and anxious, and they're getting peppered with questions from their boss, so they're peppering their people with questions, and they're disengaging that top performer that they had, at that same timeline, this leader is providing organized positive status updates. They actually motivated quick work, and they provided full confidence to their boss and got it from their team. Great as a hypothetical, right? But how do we make that happen for you? How do you make motivation, delegation, and confidence all come together for you? Well, again, like with so many things in leadership, it all comes down to communication. You can motivate your team. You can delegate work appropriately to instill confidence with communication. Let's dig into the how and how you can apply it yourself by focusing on the two primary steps: clear goals and curiosity to motivators, and how communication is actually going to make them more efficient and more effective. Now, it is easy for busy managers to just reiterate exactly what was told to them. I get why they do it. They think they're saving time. They think they're being transparent by just reading the email they received, by just sharing the information that they were given. But sharing exactly what you were told is a waste of time. And it actually erodes trust, because the fact is, people want to work for a manager that is on their side. When you're just a pass through, it doesn't feel like you're on your team's side. It barely feels like you're on your boss's side. It feels like you're on the side of doing the least work possible. Now, you can be that manager that they want to work with by making sure that they are set up for success in what you're delegating to them. So that needs to be the question. That needs to be the filter that you're running that information from your boss through. How can I set this up so that the next person is successful? What would I need to know? What are they going to ask me? Because you and your team can be fully aligned. You can be fully confident in finding the best solutions, not the one that you came up with, but the best solution to the problem when you are focused on setting them up for success. They just need to know that you are invested enough to push back, to ask questions, to get clarity for them. As a middle manager, I frequently got vague goals, right? I think all middle managers do. I knew that there would be an expectation that we're always doing more with less, just like in this example. But in order to be successful in that, in order to make those goals of my senior leadership, of my upline come true, I had to have more information. I had to set it up so that my people could be successful. And being transparent by sharing the intent of the goal and letting my team know that we're working on it, that builds trust with them. That is how you build that trust. That's why, in the example of the leader sharing this goal, we started with them looking into it themselves, sharing that they're looking into it and that they have questions for senior leadership with their team, and then going back to their boss to get more clarity. That is going to build trust on all sides. You're taking initiative, you're communicating the work that you are currently doing and how that is going to be beneficial to getting the result that everybody wants. Then you are going to share specifics and questions and show your leader that you're taking it seriously, that you're taking a proactive approach to be successful. That builds trust with your boss, with the senior leaders, because no one could feel supported working on that first goal. You won't, your team won't. Those senior leaders aren't even going to feel really good that it's going to get done. They know it's vague. That's why they have you, to lend more foundation to it through your communication. And with such little information on what is needed and why, there's really only time for those missed deadlines and limited expectations. That's why we see the frustration in the manager example. I mean, in that first version, does anyone even know what RPA actually are? But by saving time being that pass through for that vague information, you show your team that you don't care. And you show your boss that there's really no value in having you in that spot. And I don't think that that is the impression you want to give. So most people would agree with me on that sentiment. Most people would agree that clarity is really important. And if they're going to take the time to communicate, they're going to take the time to communicate on making things really clear. But the curiosity piece, that one feels a little bit different. That one is the one that managers truly see as just a nice to have, right? And they don't have time for it. They say, if I could wave a magic wand and have all the time and all the resources, I would get really squishy and curious and bond with my team. But the thing is, that's a lie that you're telling yourself because it takes seconds and it can be worked into any communication that you are already doing. So it doesn't take time, it just takes awareness. Did you notice that I included curiosity when I talked about that leader with the exceptional communication? So, as part of a normal huddle with their team, same huddle the manager went to, the leader shares that work on this project using AI, using machine learning to do more with less. Work on this project will likely open doors to more fast paced, technology focused solutions. They were really honest with people and what the benefit of working on this would be. It's not going to be more money. It's not going to be time off. It's probably going to take time to add this project in, but it will lead to other opportunities in similar types of projects. And then they let the people who are motivated by that opt in. It was one sentence said during a meeting that in this hypothetical situation, everyone is having. So they could skip the email to that voluntold top performer. They can skip the follow up meeting to explain to that top performer why this is really good for their career. And it takes less time overall than having that whole side quest to talk someone into why they want to do the work. So it's not time, it's awareness, it's a focus on getting curious with your team, or in this case, in this very simple example, allowing them to be honest with themselves about what would make it worth it for them. So in that example, I used a super simple version of focusing on curiosity to motivate people. Very simple because I want you to see just how easy it can be to do it right, to do it in a way that avoids making those motivation mistakes that we covered last week in the video on how to motivate your team with curiosity. But that leaders don't want to just do okay. They don't want to just avoid mistakes. Leaders want to get the best results. And simply avoiding mistakes is just thinking too small. So, what would it mean for you if you could actually get more done with less people on the team? And those people were actually happy to do it. You can get there when you have consistent communication. You can have people who are engaged in being top performers just by having a continuous dialogue with them. And even that doesn't have to take you more time. This is the part where you are going to get your exact script on how to maintain this continuous conversation where you can get curious on motivators with your employees. So I want you to pause the video right now, run and grab a pen and paper because you are going to want to write these down. All right, so some great opportunities to get curious with your people could be during onboarding, during team huddles, in one-on-ones with your team, which I really hope you're having at a bare minimum once a month, ideally more like once a week. But anyways, onboarding, team huddles, one-on-ones, and anytime a new project comes up. So what would it look like to get curious during the onboarding process? Now, this could be onboarding if you have a new employee. This could be onboarding of you are the new boss getting an entirely, full team. You can have these same meetings, these same conversations with people. You could even send it out in email so that you get information back in writing on their own time. What I want you to ask is, what are you looking for out of this position and in your career in general? Do not be surprised if people can't answer that right away. Do not be surprised if you ask that in a meeting face to face, Zoom to Zoom, and people don't know how to answer it. They probably haven't been asked before. They probably haven't had someone take such an interest in what they are looking for out of their career or out of the position that they're in. Ask the question, give them the space to answer. Tell them they can answer you later. And if they do answer you or when they answer you, and if they do answer you in that moment or when they answer you, go deeper. Ask more about it. If they tell you that work-life balance is something that they're they're looking to get out of this position and out of their career in general, they want to make an impact without sacrificing time with their kids. What does that look like to you? What does work-life balance mean? Can you give me some examples? Get specific. This is an opportunity for them to get really clear with you. In a huddle, if you are working with the entire team, before a project comes up, before any, big ask is made of the team, you could ask them, if we accomplish something great, if we do something just amazing, what would be the best way for us to celebrate as a team? You might even throw out there like budget amounts if you know that you have budget for celebrations, right? So if we had to celebrate for free, what would that look like? If we had to celebrate with, $1,000 for the team as a whole, what would that look like? Again, make sure you have the budget before you throw that out there. But you could ask them that. And you will get different answers because everybody has a little bit different idea of what that looks like. One person might say, well, if we get an award around how great our customer service has been, I want to see a plaque. I want to see the recognition on the wall so that everybody in this department knows that we have exceptional customer service. Everybody else on the team might say, I kind of want a pizza party. I want to just hang out as a team. If we do something great, I want some downtime during the workday to enjoy each other's company and just talk and be friends. That's great. Now, I know I kind of like make fun of pizza parties a lot, but some people really do enjoy them and they really do like having just that downtime. So that's fantastic. Now, you're doing a couple of things here. One, you're telling people that you care about how they want to celebrate. You're telling people that you care about celebrating as a team. You're also showing people that it can be like a majority rules situation. Now, by all means, if you win an amazing award and you have the ability to do both things that people want, do both. But even if you can't, and you go with the pizza party because that's what everybody else wanted, that one person will understand because they heard that they were in the minority too. And they will see that you are putting in the effort to make sure that the most people are feeling appreciated. And hey, you can send out a department-wide email letting everybody know that we got this amazing award. Even if it's not the plaque, they'll get that that was touching what they wanted. Okay, if you are in your one-on-one, I would highly encourage on some sort of a regular cadence. So if you are meeting monthly, maybe you do this quarterly, maybe you do this biannually, but reiterate back to the person what they told you they wanted. So I heard you wanted to get blank out of this position. So that could be recognition, that could be career opportunities, that could be work-life balance, like we talked about. And I think we're getting there by doing blank, whatever the opportunities, rewards, flex time, whatever it is. Okay, so you are putting your cards on the table. I understand that you wanted this, and I think we're hitting the mark because of this. And then ask them, how do you feel? And how else can we get there? Now, maybe they were the person who wanted recognition. They told you in that first meeting that they really want to be recognized for the work that they've done. And so during those team huddles, you have called out that Susie is doing a great job and she is hitting all of her goals, and you are so proud of her. And that people should start asking her questions if they want to have that same kind of result. And that's what you think you're hitting the mark with. Susie says, "Yeah, that's great. I do appreciate that, but I really wanted the recognition so that I could create opportunities in the future. And telling the team doesn't really do that. I was hoping you would tell other leaders or that you would tell your boss." Well, there you go. Now you can course correct. Now you can redirect. Again, maybe you can do both. You're going to have to give your boss a project update anyways. You might as well be very clear that it was Susie who did the work. You're going to have the team huddle anyways. It's not taking any extra time to say this person's doing a great job. Now, when that new project comes up, when you have this situation where you got this new goal, then own up, be transparent about what it's going to take to get there. You could say to your team, look, guys, this is going to take extra hours, reprioritization of other projects. We're going to have to set stuff on the back burner, whatever. Be honest, be transparent about what it will take. And then ask them what would make it worth it for you. Now, if it's a new project and nobody wanted to do it, you put out that, that option for volunteers and nobody took you up on it. And now you go to a couple people and say, what would make it worth it for you? And they say, well, you want me to work double time through spring break, and I actually want to go out of town. So the only thing that would make it worth it for me is if I got paid double my salary. Well, you probably can't do that, right? You're not going to be able to do every single thing that people ask for. But you can say something like, oh, I hear you. Spring break is really important to me too. This project does take a lot of extra time. What would it look like, or would it be worth it for you if we took on the extra effort during this time, but I made sure that you had an extra time off before and after your trip so that you could decompress and we can have other people kind of take that load? Would it work for you to handle the project if that was the case? They're worried about time. Sure, they threw out money, but it was more so just to make a point. And so you can, as we always talk about, listen early, often, and with your eyes to see that what they want is really not necessarily money. It is time with their family and the space to actually enjoy that time and not feel stressed about it. So you can pose it back that way. It's going to be a dialogue. It's going to be a consistent conversation. And let's be honest, not every project, not every goal is going to have people really excited to take it on. But if they understand that you value what they want, you value what motivates them, and that you are willing to understand what it takes to put the work in, you are becoming that manager that they want to work with. You are becoming the person that they want to do work for, that they will run into the fire for. And they are more likely to say, you know what? I just want an acknowledgement that this is going to be a lot of effort and that I'm putting this time in. So there you have that 4 ways that you can actually script out without spending any more time finding out what motivates your people and getting really curious about exactly what that would look like for them in a multitude of different situations. Now, I want to finish that story about that client of mine that we were talking about, the one that was so skeptical of motivation through communication. Now, like I said before, he was a founder in the business, and he did have a senior leader who was working for him who was essentially acting as a pass through. Now, we said before that that's so common in management. And while it's more common in big companies, it can absolutely happen in these smaller startups as well. My client had spent a week between our sessions, frustrated because of that manager's lack of initiative. During our call, he said, the manager, he just won't step up. He only wants to work from home and do nothing. Sound like a manager you've talked to before? Now, knowing what his manager wants, knowing that he wants to work remotely, without building in a negative assumption that he actually wants to do nothing, is such a gift. And while I understand that he was frustrated in that moment, and I think it's really easy for a lot of us to get there because we make those assumptions, we make those motivation mistakes that we talked about last week. He was able to turn it around though, and you totally can too. So in coaching, we practiced how this conversation with the manager could go instead. And the very next time that client delegated an assignment to his manager, it went completely different. The client framed what needed to be done through the lens of why the manager would want to do it. So when something like, show me you can handle this work without coming back to me later, without forwarding me all of the emails, without asking me all of the questions. Show me you can do it, and it shows me you can handle the work outside of the office. I'm all for you skipping your commute to spend more time with your daughter, but you need to show me that the work can get done without my oversight. Phrasing it that way, showing that it was actually a way to demonstrate that this manager could get what he wanted, was an incredible shift. And the speed of that turnaround for that manager would give you whiplash. There were no more weeks stewing in frustration for my client because the manager didn't want to work. And there was no more circling back, wasting both of their time to answer questions that the manager could have just nipped in the bud. Just personalized motivation based on really clear expectations and exceptional delivery. If that is what you want on your team, then we should talk. I opened my calendar specifically for you to find out what clear communication would do for you as a motivator for your team. Click the link below. Take advantage of this free offer and the space on my calendar to pick my brain about what that could mean for you if you change your communication. All right. I hope that was helpful. There was a ton of technical information in here. Share it with your friends who need to work on their communication to motivate their team as well. All right. I'll see you.